Welcome to the Macdownunder Podcast for all Australian Apple computer enthusiasts and collectors.
Welcome to episode 21 of the Macdownunder Podcast. I'm Justin, and thanks to everyone that's been tuning in so far, and particularly for the likes and comments, because they certainly help us tune for future episodes. Please keep them coming and let us know what you'd like to hear about. 1,000 songs in your pocket is how Steve Jobs announced the original iPod. And that's what we're talking about today. Most things, probably not all things, iPod. We'll also cover collecting news, some coming events, and recent finds. Now, time to introduce my special guest co-host today. So Matthew's off busy this week, so unavailable. But very fortunately, Josh from Josh's Mac Museum was available. And I happened to know from previous conversations with Josh that he's very much into iPods and the various colours. Now, I'm not a bit of a colour guy in this case, so I thought it was a great match for us to talk about iPods. So welcome, Josh. How are you?
Yeah, thanks, Justin, and hi, everyone. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm doing really well. I'm really excited to be here. I've been a big fan of the podcast since day one, episode one. So it's a bit surreal to actually be part of the podcast. But yeah, looking forward to talking about some iPods because that's definitely one of the things that I enjoy about some of the Apple history, particularly the colors, like you mentioned. So yeah, I'm excited to get down to that in a few minutes.
Fantastic. Well, before we go there, we have mentioned you a few times on the podcast, and you certainly put in some comments and contributions along the way.
Yes, big fan of the podcast.
And we mentioned your iMac and iPod drawers of wonder that I think are just in front of you at the moment.
Yes, I'm sitting at them right now.
Fantastic. So can you tell us a little bit about your Apple collection and the museum?
Yeah, so I guess kind of like most of us, maybe it sort of came out of just a couple of Macs. Grew up in a family who owns Apple computers, and yeah, like you might see on my channel, there's a couple of videos there just about how I got into collecting. Um, like everything in life, things have come in phases. So right now I'm in a different phase with family and whatnot. So the collecting's sort of been put on hold. But I do, yeah. I think the thing that I like about collecting is looking at Apple's design and how it's changed over the years, and particularly during what I think is for me the golden era, that second return of Steve coming and the early 2000s, which is right on point for today, and all of the different design breakthroughs that they seem to be pumping out so often. That's my passion. I'm also a school teacher, so I really enjoy looking at where our technology has come from and getting to show the next generation where their tech came from, what it was like to not have everything on a smartphone. So I'm looking forward to, yeah, talking about that a bit in a bit too. So yeah, thanks for the invite today, Justin.
No worries at all. Well, we look forward to the next generation taking over our collections and carrying them forward, hopefully.
Yeah, definitely. So what's been going on with you lately, Justin?
Yeah, so just a couple of catch-up things from last episode. So we talked about the flying toasters. I don't know whether you saw that.
Yes, I remember that.
So I've now installed it on my Monterey Mac Mini, which worked fine, and installed it also on Tahoe on my MacBook, and that was a little tricky because the install's not the same in each machine. But I did get it working and really enjoying it. In fact, I've got it. I think I've set it for 1 minute, so I actually get to see it rather than walk away. So that was a bit of fun. Nice. So that definitely works. And I think I've certainly been chatting to people offline about it. The Pippin collection. So I've got a couple of Pippins, and I'm always looking out for other stuff. And gee, the Pippin pricing this last week in particular. So there's an external keyboard that I'm looking for, and pretty much you can only get them from Japan. And they're selling at the moment. They're asking close to $480 odd each, and that's just out of my price range at the moment, and that's fine. I'm happy to wait and see what happens. But they're on the pricey side. I was blown away that there was a floppy drive add-on that sold at auction just recently. Now I've got one. It's attached to the developer unit. It came that way. So I've never really had a head for how much those things are worth. Well, this thing sold at auction for $1,874. So that's just the floppy disk. Yeah, just amazing.
Ridiculous, yeah.
And so anyway, so that was interesting. This was just during the week. And the Pippin Atmark, which is the Bandai version, generally sell, well, the asking price is around $1,200 based on eBay and Buyee and a few other places. But given the price I just mentioned of the disc drive, like $1,800, and the Atmarks in a box, admittedly, sell for about $1,200, blow me away. There was an Atmark without box, but with the floppy disk that sold for $700. Like, go figure. I can't work out this pricing.
Was it sold to you, JD?
No, that one wasn't. I did buy another one in the last week, a little bit less than that, as it turns out. Thank goodness.
Yep.
But I just cannot pick these prices. They're crazy. But anyway, so that's been entertaining for the last week.
Yes, for sure.
And a big package arrived for me from the US, so I sort of bundle stuff up and get it sent across. So a couple of the rare keyboards that I've been searching for that we don't seem to be able to find in Australia. Some external CD-ROM drives just to fill out that part of my collection, and no doubt we will talk about all of that in a future episode.
Yes, the keyboards episode.
Yeah,
looking forward to it.
It's coming, and I keep on finding more and more keyboard variations as I go. So we'll have to call it quits at some point and just record it. And the last little thing that might be of interest to people, we'll have some news that sort of talking about similar things. But Danny, who's a friend of the show, and I think you actually met down at the museum.
It was a privilege.
When he was doing some of the workshops down there. He's apparently repairing some PowerBook hinges that are broken.
Okay.
And I've been helping by testing some 3D printing for PowerBook hinge covers. So I've got them sitting on the desk, and next time I catch up with Danny, we'll see how they go, and we'll report back here, because we'll all have the same problem with our early PowerBooks, I suspect.
Yeah, definitely. And just a quick one on 3D printing. I noticed this week there was a couple of iMac G3 interior bezels up for sale. I'm not sure if you saw them on the group too. I was blown away at the price of those things.
The Mac Effects ones? Yeah.
Yeah. And obviously a clear need for the product. A lot of mine have cracked over the years. And I was just surprised, I suppose, to see how much, even secondhand, they were going for.
Yeah, iMacs are certainly going up in price at the moment. They're anywhere, and we've talked about this before, anywhere between sort of $50 and $700 to $800.
Yes.
But the Mac FX internals add to that considerably.
Yes, that's right.
All right. Well, we better get on to today's episode. So, after a rapid 1 year in development involving multiple subcontractors, back in 2001, on October 23rd, Steve Jobs announced the iPod. And he explained that 1,000 songs in your pocket meant that you had your entire music library with you all the time. Now, I tried checking in Apple Music how many songs are in my library, and it actually hasn't seemed to be able to tell me. But I reckon it's more than 1,000 songs. But anyway.
Yes, yeah.
So having been announced in October, it was released on the 10th of November. And its selling points were, well, actually, I've got one right in front of me. So, this is what we're talking about, the original iPod. Its selling points were that it introduced the brand new Hitachi 1.8-inch hard disk drive, 8 gigs, with 160K resolution meant that you could get your 1,000 songs. So that was, I guess, the key feature of getting the thing so small. It was also the first Apple device that had a lithium polymer battery, apparently, which allegedly gave you 10 hours of battery life. This one doesn't get 10 hours anymore. And it also came with FireWire, which we call FireWire 400 now, but it was FireWire, which they said in the presentation was 30 times the speed of the then USB 1. Not so sure about that, but it meant that you could load your 1,000 songs in 10 minutes compared to 5 hours on USB. And also, you could charge through FireWire, so it was sort of 2 ports in one, so it's kind of handy. And again, it was advertised as being, Steve likes to compare it to household things, so a deck of cards was his comparison for the original iPod. So in typical Steve fashion, after talking through all the virtues of the iPod, he pulled it from his pocket, and showed it off to thunderous applause. Actually, there was only a small group in the Mac
Yes, it
world.
was quite a small room, I think, from memory, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'll put a link in the description to one of those videos.
Yeah,
Pretty low quality these
yeah,
days because it's 20 years ago, but
it is, isn't it?
yeah. So the whole audience were quite impressed.
Mm.
So no doubt you've seen the video. What were your
Yeah,
impressions
I
of it?
really enjoy watching these sort of Steve Jobs keynote histories. I really enjoy his charisma, I suppose, in presenting this. He was a real product guy, and I really appreciate that. And I think, yeah, my memory of that initial iPod launch was, yeah, that it was quite a small audience, comparatively speaking, to some of the other things
Hmm.
of that time and of the future. But I also really remember that slide. I loved how he set up the whole picture of, well, here's what's on the market today. And I remember he put up like flash storage, but it was really expensive. And then there was like, oh, I don't know what the other options were. But then he was like, we're choosing this one because we want capacity. And we hope that by us choosing it, we'll be able to bring the price down. And sure enough, in the next couple of years, as we'll discuss,
Hmm.
so many different variants of iPods were born from that one. And it's almost like he covered the whole slide in the next few years with
Well,
the
that's
different
it.
types of storage and the features. So yeah, I really enjoyed watching that one. I'd encourage you to check it out for sure.
Certainly worth it. So,
Mm,
so what we're talking about is the original iPod of what was the first of what we're now known as the iPod Classic series, I guess. And as you just mentioned, followed by a whole range of iPods. And
mm.
this is a photo from my Macdownunder website, which is the collection that I've got now. Now I decided I
It's
didn't want to
really
go.
impressive, JD. Look at that. That's really impressive. There wouldn't be too many of those collections out there. So kudos to you. Wow,
Well, thank you. I mean,
that's great.
you've got a fair collection, but I focus pretty much on one of each model,
Yes.
and not so much on different colours. Although I've got a couple spares that are in other colours because they've come my way
Mm,
at various times.
mm, mm.
So I focused because the original iPod was white, so I focused on white to keep things consistent. And
Hmm.
clearly for those people who are in the know, there's no options in some cases for white. So I've gone for silver, or if I've had to, slate grey and so forth. So
Yes.
so that's the collection. Now
Yeah, that's fantastic.
I know that you've gone a different way with your collection. So what have you done?
Yeah. So I am in awe of your collection, JD. That's so cool seeing all the different models out there, almost like a family tree. Um, like you have got your $100 budget limit. I'm also extremely limited with budget, and long story short, spent a number of years in IT, and often most of my actual collection, to be honest, has come from just me fixing people's computers and taking the old one or upgrading their laptop and they'll let me have the old one or buy it for cheap and whatnot. So a lot of my iPods have sort of just appeared. My first actual iPod that I remember owning for myself was on my 18th birthday. My best mate Ben, shout out to Ben if he's watching, bought this blue shuffle.
Hmm.
Um, and I guess the shuffle was really cool for me because I like to ride my bike to school. So I could literally just plug in my headphones, clip it on, and I was away. And the battery would last for days and days. And because it was a bike ride, I didn't need to have 1,000 songs. So that was kind of my first personal experience. I had family that owned other iPods. My uncle owned the deck of cards one, and I remember getting to use that and feeling really quite chuffed that I could operate it on that spinning wheel.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I suppose, yeah, so for my collection, I love Apple and color. I really love their use of color and just even I suppose the design elements of how they made color. Is it plastic color? Is it metal color? Is it infused aluminum like they like to talk about? So yeah, for my collection, and maybe you've got a picture of it up there too. We can have a look at yeah the different colors. I've tried to collect sort of color sets for each one rather than just the specific models that are different. I for my collection, I really like having the visual differences compared. I don't really have too much interest in looking at things that are technically a different model number, but they look almost identical. I just really like looking at those visual progressions. And I think you've got a few photos coming up, JD, of a couple of the families and how they've grown.
Yeah, we do. So, so if we decided we'd talk about every model, I think we'd be here for weeks. In fact, I know we would
Yes,
be. So,
yes.
what we'll try to do is go through by series and then just call out any highlights. Now, I suspect, I know because we've already done a bit of a workup on this. The classic series, there's an awful lot to talk about, but I guess it's
Mm,
classic for a reason. So,
yes.
so there's the classic series. And so the first gen, as you just mentioned, had the scroll wheel, which it's pretty hard to demonstrate even on the screen. But the whole wheel actually turns, which if you haven't played with the first model, is quite different to any other iPod with the touch sensitive.
It's quite an experience, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, which I actually quite like. The only catch is, of course, it gets dirty. It gets very dirty. So that was the first model. The second gen came out.
Sorry, you've also got to remember as well, this was a revolutionary idea, this whole touch wheel, scroll wheel. I remember in the keynote, Steve Jobs put up a couple of the alternative products that were out there, and they were also clunky. And some people I know didn't really like the scroll wheel idea, and that was almost as revolutionary as the idea of having 1,000 songs in your pocket.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's cool to see that changing as well.
And we'll come back to that in a minute because my most hated iPod is coming up soon. So the Gen 1 had the scroll wheel, and it had the buttons surrounding the wheel. So there were physical buttons for play and pause and so forth, and forward and reverse. So the second gen basically replaced the scroll wheel with a touch wheel, which we're far more familiar with, but still physical buttons. And it had a couple of other minor changes, greater capacity, and it had a cover for the FireWire because the original one didn't.
Yes.
It was open to the elements. And the second one, interestingly enough, they came out with some accessories as well. So they came out with this remote control, which you don't see around terribly much now, because it it worked, I think, up until version 5. We'll talk about that when we get there. But so it had some accessories which were pretty handy. I mean, I was really lucky that when I bought my second gen, it came complete with a whole heap of accessories. And then we get up to the Pariah, the third gen. So the third one from the left. It introduced the 30-pin dock, so I might just go to the other.
Here's an example.
I was going to say, I've got one here, yeah.
Dock, yeah.
So it came with a 30-pin dock, but as you can probably know, it's got the scroll wheel, but they moved the buttons to the top. Now, the touch sensitive...
And made them glow red.
Yeah, that's right, and you can't really see too well on the screen for this one. But... just a terrible user interface. Like, for all the innovation you just mentioned in Generation 1 and then Generation 2, I'm really not happy with 3. So I never really aspired to get one. I've got one for completeness, but I never really thought much of it, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that they look really cool. Like the marketing had them in this sort of dark room. There's that really clear, bright white screen and the red buttons underneath. I think it looks boss, but yeah, you're right. As far as usability, not their finest hour in my opinion either.
Not fantastic. So when we move on to Gen 4, we get what we're really used to in that sort of classic iPod look. So the fourth one from the left on the picture there. In fact, I've got one here as well. So that's the Gen 4, which we're used to with the click wheel, and everything's touch sensitive, and just a beautiful user interface. But it was still black and white. And as you probably know, and people watching this probably know, there was a second version of the fourth gen, which is the iPod. Now, interesting name. It was technically called the iPod with color display. Because that's what it did. Color. It came with a color display. But it actually came in box for me. So there's the box.
Oh, yeah, and, nice. Look at that.
As you can probably see on the box, it calls out pretty heavily. It could do photos. So that was the big thing about
kind of known as the iPod Photo, I think, or the first of the iPod Photos. I
think everyone called it the iPod Photo. However, technically, it had this much longer name that didn't roll off the tongue at all. Not very catchy. But when you look at the two of them, they look identical, but you can see which one it is. That one on my on the left of screen has the slightly darker, slightly smaller screen, and that's the photo version. So if you're out searching the interwebs, that's how you can tell the difference between the two. So yes, came with a color screen, could play photos, but it wasn't until the fifth version, which looks very similar, that you actually got video. So the fifth gen did video. That was its big thing, and they introduced a new remote control for it. which is the iPod radio remote. So it actually looks like an iPod in itself.
It does,
But it's
doesn't it? It looks like my shuffle.
it does very much. Just ahead
Yeah.
of, I think, of the Shuffle release. Um,
Yes.
and you can see the controls are on there, so you can have your iPod in your pocket, you can remote control it.
Mm.
But the big feature was it had an FM radio receiver in it, and so you could listen to the radio as well as your iPod
Mm.
with the 5th gen. So that was pretty cool. Moving on to the
Nice.
sixth gen. Basically, they changed to a metallic finish. So in my case, I've gone for the silver one, and then the seventh version, basically same innards, but that upgraded the memory so you could get up to 160 gigabytes. So it's 140,000 songs at 128K resolution. And sadly,
140 times your entire library, right?
yeah, that's it.
Who would need all that?
Just in case your library was a bit bigger than 1,000 songs.
Mm.
And sadly, the entire line discontinued on the 9th of September in 2014. But one other little highlight just before we move on to your particular interest in these things, they did bring out the iPod Hi-Fi. So Steve Jobs says this would be the ultimate speaker. You wouldn't need another hi-fi system.
Yeah, who would need
ever.
another? In fact, I've got one just up there. It's pumping out
Oh,
the
yes.
tunes.
Twins.
Yeah.
And so probably the biggest iPod accessory. Of course, there are lots of others, cases
And
and
that,
skins and things.
yeah. And it was even a portable. It ran on these big D batteries.
It
I think
did.
it was D or C, big batteries.
Yeah, I was cleaning this one today just before I took the photo because I haven't got around to taking photos of these yet. And I saw a little bit of brown coming out of the battery compartment. I thought, oh, don't tell me about the batteries in. But fortunately, no batteries in there. So I managed to clean it up. But yeah, so a fantastic accessory for any of your iPods with the 30-pin connector. Now,
Yes, that's right.
Now, Josh,
So
of
yeah,
course, your interest is more into the color variations. Well, there probably wasn't a lot of color variation, but anyway,
no,
what can you tell
to be
us?
honest with you, I haven't actually even got all of the versions of that, mainly due to budget, of course,
Yes.
um, for the classic, because I feel like the classic was the least colorful as far as
Mm.
official Apple products went. Um, our viewers might be aware of a YouTuber that I subscribe to called Hugh Jeffries. And maybe you could give him a shout out in the show notes as well. He does a lot of iPod modding, or he did back in the day, with different colored cases. And so he's made all sorts of colors of classic iPod. He's put SSDs in them, new batteries. And so you've got this completely random colored iPod that Apple, of course, never released, but it looks really quite well done. So yeah, there's a couple of different colors that were official, however, and these, in my opinion, are pretty rare. I haven't gone down this rabbit hole for a couple of years, but I know that there were special editions for some famous people, Madonna, Tony Hawk, and I know that the most popular version, which I do happen to have here in my collection, was this U2 edition, and
Hmm.
you can actually see I've got the box somewhere up here. I think it is. To be honest
Oh,
with you,
yep, on the right. Yep.
I bought it, man, more for the box. I'm not even sure if it works, but yeah, what's really cool about it is on the back there's those signatures
Yes.
from all the band members. So yeah, that was the fourth gen they started that, and so I'm pretty sure that didn't have the iPod with color display. I think that was the original fourth gen.
Probably.
Um, and yeah, there were some other ones there. There's a Harry Potter edition with some Hogwarts crest on the back. So yeah, after the fourth gen U2 iPod, they actually did a fifth gen in black with the red click wheel again, a U2 edition. They also did another Harry Potter edition of that too. And then pretty much from there, the colors were all standard from Apple. They changed the names as they do for the different shades of grey. But yeah, if you add them all up, there's 20 official Apple versions with different color, I suppose you could say, and that doesn't include the different storage capacities. So yeah, what do you reckon, JD? What's your favorite out of that lineup?
Out of that lot, yeah, I've got. I never really used one of these back in the day, so I've got a really soft spot for the first gen because it was revolutionary, and I really liked the scroll
Mm,
wheel because it's different. And I
mm,
guess the fifth edition, the video version, when you use it, it's a very professional feels nice, and again, it's in the traditional white. So I think they're my two
Mm,
picks. What about you? What's your
yeah.
favourite?
Yeah, look, I'll be honest, I was looking for one of those U2 ones for a long time. They were always, I don't know, yeah, it seemed to be like they were just this unicorn, I suppose, for people in my budget range because they were just so much cooler. So it's really cool that I've got one of those, and the box is really well done. It unfolds and it's a perfect cube, and it was a really cool experience. So that's probably my favorite classic. However, I must say I do prefer the next series that came out, the iPod Mini.
Introduced on the 20th of February. And as you mentioned earlier, with the original iPod, Steve was very much onto the business aspect of the various markets. And so, as you described, he went through the market segments and he talked about how iPod had taken over 30% of the market, and that they were wanting to target the high-end flash players that were
Mm,
still only really a couple of hundred songs, I think, from memory, or maybe even less, 60 songs, I
mm,
think. And so the iPod Mini was put out to compete with those high-end flash players. Now, sadly, there was only ever two models of it, Model 1 and Model 2. You can see them both there.
mm.
And because I've gone for the silver, you really can't tell the difference.
Not a good
when you
example of the differences, no.
when you flip them over, I haven't bothered with the photo. Actually, I can go to the other camera. So there's my version 1, and when you flip it over, which you can't really see, it doesn't have the capacity on it. Version 2 has the capacity written on it. So that's how you can tell the difference with the silver ones.
Mm,
You're
mhm.
going to tell us about the colours in a minute. So Steve's comparison here was a business card. So he reckons that was the size of a business card. Now, I've never had a business card that size, I've got to say. It's pretty
The,
big.
the thickness does turn you off a bit, doesn't it? A stack of business cards, perhaps.
Yeah. Um, and what else? It only ever had a mono screen, so because there was only ever two
Hmm.
versions. Notably, I should say, it was the one that introduced the actual click wheel, the scroll wheel with the click buttons. So this
Mm,
was ahead of the iPod version 4, getting
mm,
it. And because there was only two models, it was discontinued pretty quickly in 2020. Sorry, in 2005, and replaced with the iPod Nano that we'll talk about in a minute.
mm. It's
But the
almost like
big
an iPod Nano Classic, isn't it? It's
It
sort of
is.
the father of the iPod Nano.
It totally is. But the big feature of the iPod Mini, as you know, was colours. So,
Came in color,
what
finally.
can you tell
And I
us
don't know
about
what.
that?
Yeah, well, I don't know where the timeline fits as far as those iMac G3s go, but obviously them coming in color, those first five colors, was a whole marketing strategy that Apple took a punt on. It seems to have paid off. I remember the ads quite clearly, for the iMacs. Are you going to match your iMac to your decor or your decor to your iMac?
Hmm.
There was the color. This is where my interest really starts because yeah, color is just so cool. So yeah, like you've mentioned, there are a couple of visual differences, including in the colors. So the first generation came in five colors. It came in the silver that you've got there. It also came in blue, green, pink, and gold. Now, to be honest, I think I've got a couple of these here. The colors to me are kind of more pastel colors. So they're very, very soft colors. Take the pink, for example. It's almost a baby pink that you can see
Hmm.
under there. Whereas the second gen was much bolder. So I've only got one second gen iPod in my collection. So if anyone out there knows of any other second gens, yeah, so you can see the difference here between the two colors of the first and second gen.
Yeah.
The other big difference with the colors is that um, where's the camera focusing on here? The click wheel had the colored buttons on the second gen, whereas the first gen, all the buttons were just grey.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think as far as color goes with these, it was definitely I'd had this memory of walking into the Apple authorized reseller, our local Apple store, because we didn't even have proper Apple stores at this point. And yeah, there was this stack on the floor of these iPod mini boxes and all these different colors, and it was just yeah, it was very wow factor. So yeah, 10 color variations in total, although some of them quite difficult to spot the difference.
I think we've got one in the for sale section, so hold your
Oh,
horses.
even better, yeah.
I'm not. I guess you can't remember now whether it was a version 1 or 2. Well, but we'll find out.
Yeah, that's it.
Excellent. So let's move on. Next up, we had the iPod shuffles, and again, I'll put a link in the description to each of the videos where these were announced. But
They're great,
again,
great watching, aren't they?
they are. Again, Steve talked about the market share, and they talked about how the iPod Mini was the most popular MP3 player on the market because it had taken over another 30% share of the market. But this time they were wanting to target all of the flash players, and so the shuffle was released as, or the original shuffle was released apparently to target the flash player market in general. And the first one, which you can see on the left there, was compared to a pack of chewing gum. And in the video, it's actually quite funny. Steve goes to great lengths with multiple manufacturers and brands of chewing gum to prove his point. Which was really funny. So this was a one more thing as well. So it was Steve on steroids, this particular presentation. So slightly different user interface for all of these. In fact, the third version completely different because we don't have a click wheel anymore. We really have buttons that look like they're a click wheel, but they're not really. But that's okay.
They look like an iPod remote, really, don't they?
They absolutely do. So I have a remote in my hand somewhere. There we go. And I have the other one in a box. Oh, that's not working too well with the green screen, but you can see it. And they are very, very similar in size and certainly color and so forth. So, so there you go. What else were we going to say? According to Steve, they named the shuffle after the iTunes feature, so the shuffle feature in Replay Music. So that's where the name came from. And the four models were really quite different. We'll go back to the picture. So the first gen was the chewing gum version, and the big feature, I love this one. I had one of these, or I've still got it in the box, but I used this at work because you could pull the cap off it, and it was a USB stick. It was brilliant for work. So I could take files to and from work as a USB stick and then listen to music on it if I chose to. I probably used it more as a USB stick than I did as an iPod, to be quite honest.
Yeah, yep. They also, I think, JD came with a lanyard.
It
Was
did.
definitely in the
You've got it
marketing.
there.
Yeah, and it replaced the whole cap, which I thought was pretty genius. None of this having to do your own string. It was fantastic.
Beautiful.
Yeah, this one here, and they replaced the whole cap, which was great. And I think I remember the ads. This was in the Silhouette days of the iPod Classic to start, but then of course this one had the lanyard in white as well as the iPod and the earphones. So yeah, some pretty clever marketing.
Absolutely. And so Gen 2, now I've got quite a few of these because the second gen, which was, well, that smaller one, which lots and lots of rival MP3 players emulated at some point. But we used those at home. My boys are now grown up in their 20s, but when they were babies, we used two of these, one each for the boys, for their sleep music at night. So
Cool.
I've got fond memories of using those. Now, the third one is just tiny. You can see it there in the picture, but really it's just tiny.
It's
so you can see
the packet. We've gone from a pack of chewing gum to a single stick of chewing gum.
Yeah, totally. Well, it folded in half. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So only really one button to select. I think it's on, off, and shuffle or something similar. And so move the controls to the earbud cable. And as I found out, because I've been trying to use this one when I was taking the photos, as I found out, I've got the wrong headset because it only has one generation of headset that works on it. Unfortunately, the new ones don't. But introduced voiceover, so it announced on your headset the various songs and what commands you were asking it to do. So that was kind of interesting.
I'm going to say on voiceover, I mentioned earlier about enjoying looking at the journey of where our texts come from. And I feel like with Apple, they sort of introduced some of these test products that are actually foreshadowing some stuff further down. So in this case, voiceover, there was no Siri at this point in time. In fact, even the text to speech was pretty average. So this is a cool example of one of those foreshadowing moments of let's see how this goes. And clearly the product itself was not taken very well. I think this is probably, I don't know the stats, but if sounds like it was probably the poorest selling iPod. There was definitely some pretty outraged comments from us Shuffle, and that was reflected in the fourth generation. It was actually said in the keynote that okay, we didn't get that one right, so we brought the buttons back.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. And so yes, and so the fourth version just came back as a smaller version of the second model,
yes.
which again, all of these came in lots of colours too. So over to you.
Yeah, I seem to have become the color guy. Well, yeah, like I say, the first one I remember standing out, and even the box that you held up there, because it was bright green, there was such marketing in the background color of this. It was almost lime green, sort of a very similar lime to, where am I? This side. The
Mm.
lime of that really striking green. And yeah, you can probably put another link in the show notes to Dank Pods. Not sure if you're familiar with him. His whole setup is on that lime green, and he's really into iPods. Great YouTuber. But yeah, the second gen, like I mentioned, is really close to my heart. It was my first personal iPod, and I've got a video on my channel that sort of covers the different colors that are available in there. But again, there were two. Well, there's a bit of debate on this. There were sort of two versions of the color. There was sort of a pastel version, and then there was a more
Mm.
bold version. And I haven't had the time to do the research like you into the nuances of that. But there's sort of your main family set, your standard silver, blue, green, orange, pink. Then there's also this sort of subset. It's almost like the IMAX where they had the five fruit colors, and they've got this sort of more different colors, like your graphite and your sage and ruby. So there's a second set as well with your light blue, light green, and I've got all these here. Did you want me to show them, JD?
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, there's sort of lighter colors like this with like light blue, light green, almost these minty sort of colors. Um, There was a special one that I wasn't actually aware of until quite recently, done in gold, and that one was an Avon special. So they partnered up, and I'm not sure what the deal was exactly. I'm not really into Avon, but I like the gold.
Yeah, yeah.
And my most recent discovery, which was actually pointed out to me by someone who watched my YouTube video about the second gen iPod, I thought I had them all, um, because I had this product Red, which was my one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Um, and one of the side notes that I liked to make these into almost physical playlists. I'd have an audio book on one, and I'd have my bike riding songs on one, and I'd have this sort of song and almost physical playlists. But there's actually another product red that was a darker red that came out with the next version, but
Right.
it's still referred to as product red, and I don't actually have that one. So again, I don't know if any are in the for sale section, but if anyone out there's got one of those, that's the only one I'm missing now. And I
No, I
didn't
haven't.
realize it existed at the time.
Yeah, no, I haven't seen the product red ones.
Mm.
So in the show notes, I was talking about whilst there was only four models, there are 31 variations. But in fact, I was only counting product red as one color. But if there was two,
Yeah, yeah, it was a darker red, and so yeah, kind of like with the classic, there are a couple of like the Avon one, I suppose, that they teamed up with certain companies. And I don't know how legit, like how much of this was Apple, how much of this was third party, just stamping their badge on.
yeah,
But yeah, it was a crazy time. And then yeah, obviously the third gen, I don't have all of these. I've got a friend who's got most of them. But yeah, here's an example of a bright pink one. And these really do look like sticks of gum if you line them all up because they're just so small and light. Um, Now the fourth gen is another rabbit hole as far as colors go, because yes, there are colors, but then there's colors because there's a blue one,
yep,
but then there's a blue one. And
right.
so there's actually many, many, many different versions. And I haven't gotten anywhere near to collecting all those because the special place in my heart is for the second gen. So
Right.
I like having the ability to squeeze with the extra little bit of space on the ends. Whereas, of course, the technology is better and it's smaller, but I always find that I'm just sort of clicking the button when I'm squeezing on that
Yeah, yeah.
that second one. So, yeah, those are some of the colors of the iPod Shuffle.
So 30, well, 31 and maybe 32, possibly even 33 variations if you really went down the rabbit hole, particularly with the
Mm,
different colors of or shades of product red.
mm,
Amazing. Yeah, I really liked the first gen because I used it at work. I talked about it a fair bit, and yeah, like you, the
mm.
second gen because it was related to my boys growing up and when they were, when I
Yes.
was looking after them in the nursery and they were going to sleep. A special part in my heart for that as well.
Yeah. And I think that's what really stands out to me. A lot of the kids that I teach, they're all primary school students. And so a lot of them have not really grown up without knowing what the world was like with iPads and iPhones. And so I think, like Steve used to talk about a lot, and especially in his Walter Isaacson biography, music was really special to him too. And so I think that was really shown in the product passion behind this. And it's
Mm.
interesting that this is what we've chosen to discuss because I think it's a bit somehow different to a computer. Music is something that just goes a bit deeper than production or workflow or whatever it is that you're doing.
Mm.
So yeah, that's another reason that these are so special to me. So yeah.
Fantastic. Well, we'll move on to the next series, which is probably the most interesting one from a shape point of view, from a color point of view, and just the
Oh yeah.
the sizes as well. So the iPod Nano Series. So
Look at
these
that
were
family lineup. It's a crazy. It's almost like cheaper by the dozen, isn't it? It's just
well, it is, and particularly when you look at the last two, you can sort of see a bit of a progression early on.
mm,
But yeah, if the shuffle variation wasn't enough, there's certainly plenty of variation in the Nanos. So these were the first one was released on the 7th of September 2005 when the iPod Mini was retired. And in typical Steve fashion, he pulled it from his jeans pocket. But
and
it
you
was
remember
actually
which
his.
pocket, right?
It was, yeah. What's his other pocket? It was the change pocket. Have a look at the video. I'll put the link down in the
Yeah,
description.
it's a good watch.
He compared it. He compared the size of it or the thickness of it to a 2B pencil. So that was the comparison this time, and it was about a third. Well, he says it was about probably more than a third of the size of the original Mini. All of the Nanos across the series had color displays, and so could show photos. And as you can see, that huge range of form factors. And again, like everything else, I really like the first gen because it's got that traditional iPod look. It's got the white color. It had the color screen. Very reminiscent for me of the fourth and fifth gen
Yeah, it's
classics.
almost just like a literal shrink down, isn't it, of the classic?
Yeah,
Just the
yeah.
whole finish and the black and white only. It's great.
Lovely little device. Again, didn't use one. Oh, actually, I did. We'll get to which one I used in a minute. But I didn't use the first gen until I'd bought it for the collection. The first gen, probably a reason why I didn't use it, it suffered a recall. And an Australian was the first person to actually have the thing burn up his pocket as the batteries were known to overheat. So it was 2011. So it took a while. It was 6 years into production.
Mm. Hmm.
So the batteries overheated, caused fires, all sorts of nastiness, and so there was a recall. So I suspect if you've got a first gen, it's actually probably fairly rare
Mm.
for
And
that
I think
reason.
on the recall, from memory, they were also doing that recall for like quite a long time afterwards. And so it was almost, I remember in my early collecting days being like, oh, if I can find a first gen, I could take it in and get a brand new one because it won't be scratched because it's a recall, right? Never
Now
actually
that
got
could
around to doing
explain
it,
why
but
this one's in such good condition, actually.
yeah, yeah.
So that was the first gen. Second gen, as you can see, they sort of changed the casing, and I'm sure there's a spec upgrade, but I haven't gone down that rabbit hole. The
Mm,
third gen, completely different looking, but foreshadowed very much the sixth and seventh gen classics, which didn't come out for quite some time afterwards. But
mm,
uh, but then they moved back to that more traditional form factor with the fourth gen.
mm,
And then the fifth gen, so third from the right, introduced the first camera in an iPod. And
mm,
it also introduced an accelerometer because with that really tall screen, if you wanted to watch movies on it or your
mm,
photos, you needed to be able
hmm,
to change the orientation. So it
mm.
had the accelerometer, which we're used to now on iPhones and iPads and everything else, so you could rotate the screen, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, very
Um,
much so.
and it was actually the fifth gen, so that third one from the right, that actually introduced the little remote. It was actually designed for that, but worked
Oh,
with everything
okay.
else. Worked with
Yeah,
everything else
right.
as well.
And that was
Uh,
on with the speed of the radio as well, is that right?
that's right. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
cool.
so the sixth gen. Now the sixth gen is this little beastie here, and I'll just go back to two cameras. So it's this little one here. Now I had one of these. I wore it as a watch for
Hey.
many years.
No,
until the Apple Watch finally got released.
yeah.
And so I was
Kind of back to what I
really,
was saying before. Hey, like the foreshadowing of, will this work? Does a touchscreen this small work?
yeah, but and it was actually the first touchscreen in an iPod
Yeah.
as well.
Mm.
So yeah, absolutely. And so, as I'm sure people knew, there are lots of third-party watch band variations. So I had things that clipped over the clip on the back. I had
Hmm.
big rubberized versions that sort of enveloped the thing with a slap band on it. I had about 5 different versions of bands because they all eventually broke. But yeah, so I used the sixth gen for a long time. So really,
Mm.
really like that one.
Mm.
And then they brought out the seventh gen, which was a bit of a disappointment for me because it was still a touchscreen, but you couldn't
Yes.
wear it as a watch. Well, you looked like a Jetson with
Yes.
a really big, really big thing on your arm, which I
Yeah.
didn't do.
Do you know whereabouts alongside the iPod Touch that seventh gen was released? Was it sort of a similar time? I asked
I
that
haven't
based
got the
on the home
dates.
button.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, I
Because
haven't got the dates. I don't know.
yeah, my comment on the seventh gen would be about the interface. Because I don't know, but I'm pretty sure that it was before the iPod Touch officially released. Um, but as far as the icons go, I think they're the only, to my knowledge, the only Apple product that have got these specialized, completely round touchscreen icons that are actually circles. And yeah, because they added Bluetooth as well, you can technically do all sorts of things with them, and they're actually quite a usable iPod. I actually used one of them on my trip down to the Mac Museum, 12 hours in the car, and it was great.
Fantastic. So yes, the seventh gen, yeah, added Bluetooth, and it was all discontinued in 2017 alongside the Shuffle discontinuing
Mm,
as well. But heaps of form factors, and I have absolutely no doubts because I've seen them. Multiple colours all over the place for these.
yeah, 100%. And to be honest, this iPod, I think was actually what really inspired the color collection. I'm not sure if maybe we'll put a link to it in the notes, but there was this ad that is so clear in my mind. I think it was the fourth or the fifth gen. 9 colors lined up, and it
Mm,
was paint dripping off them. I think was in the ad, and it was just so much color that I was just like, oh, imagine one day having all of those, and I'm not there yet, but I'm getting there. There's definitely some rarer colors in there. So yeah, but we'll just do a quick recap of the colors, starting at the
yep.
first one. Not sure, JD. Do you reckon white or black was rarer?
I suspect black was rarer. I've seen lots of white ones
Hmm.
around, and you've got both. Fantastic.
Yeah, I've got both, and I've even got one that looks like it might have been a suspiciously recalled one because the back is just so shiny.
Right.
Love it. But yeah, as we know from all iPods, the back, that stainless steel just scratches up so easily.
Mm,
So it's quite obvious when someone hasn't used one because it's still shiny.
yes.
Um, so yeah, the second gen. Now this is a bit of an odder one because I don't know about you, but the second gen doesn't seem to be as popular, at least from what I've seen. Um,
Mm.
especially with colors. So I don't actually have all the colors of the second gen. So if anyone's got a black one out there, let me know. But there were 6 colors. Your standard silver and of course black, but then you've got green, blue, pink, and the product red, which I recently picked up.
Hmm.
And it's
Fantastic.
also fun lining up all the product reds. There's so many different shades of red. You think it's just red, but yeah, it's crazy. And I
That was
really
my
like this.
assumption that it was going to be like a standard color for everything
Yes.
that Apple made, but obviously not.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Well, as a bit of a comparison with the third gen, which we're about to get to, it almost looks
Oh,
pink.
right.
This is product
Yeah,
red. So you can see there's red and then there's red.
red.
Um, and yeah, I feel like again, I'm a bit hazy on the details, but I'm pretty sure this was one of the first products, the second gen, that talked about that infused color within the metal. I'm not too sure
Mm,
about the details of it, but I'm pretty sure that was one of the first products that ever had that. Of course, alongside the Shuffle and the iPod Mini. Yeah, that actually took that to a new level. There was something about it. Look at that third gen. You got that picture of your lineup again there, JD. It just stacks out, doesn't it? As the odd kid. That
it
and the
is.
six, you're just like, what is going on there? And fun fact about that, that's actually one of the first things that caught my eye about my wife back in the day. She had this beautiful pink um, third gen, and
Nice.
one of the things that we bonded over early was this was early in my early collecting days. I actually that was one of the first things I decided to collect all the colors of. just because they were so cool, and I was trying to impress my wife. So yeah, 6 colors of those. Again, black and silver, but then there's a turquoise and a mint. So these are reflective of the iPod shuffles of the time.
Yes.
So that's sort of more pastel color. There was also the pink that I just showed you, and then yeah, product red, which was really, I'll show it next to the pink. It was really just a dark pink. It's definitely one of the more interesting product reds from what
Mm.
I've seen. So that's the third gen. Fourth gen's where it really starts to heat up. Like I mentioned with that poster, there are 9 colors. And I think, like we were just talking about before, they look very, very similar. I mean, here's an example of a fourth gen here and the fifth gen. They look almost identical,
Yeah,
apart from the
it's just
little
the
camera
size
on
of
the
the
back with the
screen,
next
and
one.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, but there was actually a lot of tech that was updated in that relatively short time in the fifth gen. And so therefore it's actually quite difficult when you're looking at these listings to actually work out. If there's no picture of the back, you've really got to look closely at the screen size to see.
mm.
But yeah, 9 colors of both of those. And in theory, they were the same color. To my collection, lots of the colors are similar, but the finish on the fifth gen is a much more glossier, deeper color. It's almost like that Mazda red, that really deep, rich color.
Right.
So for comparison, again, because I know you love product reds, JD, product red, product red. So this is fourth
Yeah,
gen here and fifth gen. You can just see how deep the red is.
yeah.
So the sixth gen, that was your favorite watch band, watch iPod, 7 colors, and I've only got one of those. So, and again, I haven't really been looking for this stuff just because I've got other stuff going on. But one day it'd be really cool to have all those colors too. And the seventh gen. Now, again, my mate Ben, he has collected all of those colors and he uses them on a regular basis. So he's
Right.
done the same playlist thing where this playlist is this and it's a physical playlist. So it's pretty cool in the center console of the car to just have this little lineup of color. Oh, I want to listen to this today. Take this one out. And yeah, there are different versions of the colors there as well. But yeah, it makes up 53 different Apple combinations of color just in that one family line. So I've
Just
got a
in the
long way to
nanos.
go.
Mm. Well, you can see
Yeah,
why
it's crazy.
I stopped early.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Very good. All right, so we must be up to the touches now. So what I've had to do here, because from the front, the iPod Touch looks identical other than the size. So I thought I'd just go on the backs because the backs are a little bit different.
I love
So,
that idea. It's great.
so remembering that the iPhone was announced in January 2007 and shipped in June, the iPod Touch, when you might think it came out first, it really didn't. It came out after the
Mm,
iPhone in September 2007. So
mm.
the original iPod Touch, I happen to have one here. Um, to be honest, not a terribly remarkable machine, particularly if you've had an iPhone 2G. Um,
Mm.
quite pedestrian, but did the job. And I guess the idea
Yeah.
was to keep it cheap as well because the iPhones were
And
extremely expensive.
and also in Australia, because the 2G wasn't actually sold here, that, at least for me, where I was at that time, that was pretty popular with my mates because they got an iPhone without the iPhone.
Mm.
iOS was a whole revolutionary thing in itself. So it was cool to be able to actually experience that. And it's almost like you just didn't have the phone app, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And fun fact, in fact, iOS, which we're used to talking about, started off as iPhone OS, and the first couple
Mm.
of touches used the iPhone operating system, which is
Oh, interesting. There you go.
yeah, and
Yeah,
which
okay. I
turned
didn't
into
know that.
iOS and was across the product line that was touch sensitive. But yeah, it started
Mm.
off as iPhone iOS, which I just found out during the research for today. So I
Yeah,
didn't
interesting.
remember that at all.
Mm.
So the first one released in September 2007. The whole line was discontinued just recently in 2022.
Mm.
And so therefore was the last iPod series that was available for sale.
Hmm.
But when you have a look against all the other iPods and the features and so forth, really the iPod Touch, it's a different product altogether. Um,
Mm. It's an
it's a
iPhone
music,
product, isn't it?
yeah, it's certainly a music player, and that makes it an iPod. But it is just so different in that it's got apps, and you can run your calendars and various other things on them as well, and
Mm.
ultimately take photos with later models. It really
Mm.
is its own product line, I think, in itself.
Mm.
Anyway, so
I
the
would
first
agree.
gen. So the first gen included Wi-Fi and multi-touch, which we'd expect from the iPhone, and had the Safari web browser, so it was internet capable, and very much like the original iPhone. The second gen introduced a built-in speaker and Bluetooth connectivity, which is fantastic. Third gen was really just an up-spec'd second gen. I can't really talk much about
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
The fourth gen was I guess, the one that was a little bit different because it had a camera on the back. In fact, it had two
Mm.
cameras. It had a front-facing and a
Mm.
rear-facing camera. And again, my boys, in fact, all of the kids in my family had these, so I've got heaps of them in my collection as a result.
Yes. Yes.
But pretty much they're all the same: black face and silver back.
Mm.
The fifth model, you can see I've actually got two of the fifth. Well, you may not be able to tell, but I've got two versions of the fifth model there. So the one that looks
Hmm.
white, which is actually just a really light silver, is the original fifth gen, and then the grey, the sort of mid grey with the camera in it, was the later version of Model 5 that obviously had the camera. What else did it do? It had a flash, and it introduced Siri and FaceTime as
Mm.
well, which is pretty cool.
Mm.
And then the sixth and seventh generation basically provided additional capacity and some enhanced features, but
Mm.
otherwise, well, lots of colours, as you'll tell us, but otherwise with just enhancements on the fifth edition, as far as I can tell.
Mm.
But so the first four generations were pretty bland, I think. There was pretty much just black face. Some of them might have had a white
Yeah.
face.
Yeah, I think the first gen, the fourth gen was the first to introduce a white face because I've got one of those here.
Hmm.
Um, but I think looking at the design of the backs as well, that first gen was quite it's almost like they've circled back to it with the newer MacBook Pros now. They're sort of very chunky, not very rounded edges. Second, third, fourth have much rounder edges and sort of to match I guess almost the iPhone 3G and 3GS sort of feel. You got to remember as well just how ridiculously small these things are. Because
Mm.
like you see there's a camera at the top, there's a lot of bezel up the top and the bottom. This is an iPhone 13 mini, my current phone. It's a mini. All the kids at school, oh, you got such a small phone. Well, this is the iPod.
And it was
And
smaller, yeah.
and look at the screen size as well. It's substantially smaller. So I think it was definitely a design feature at the back there with changing the metals. Um, but yeah, onto the ones that did have color. Now, I must admit, the touches are definitely, like you've mentioned, a separate product. So they're almost out of my head as far as iPods go. They're more in the can't afford all the iPhones section of my head.
Yeah.
Um, but I do know that there were lots of nice colors. In the fifth, in particular, that was the first one that actually introduced color. So your standard Apple lineups, grey or space grey as they called it, silver, and then a couple of colors, yellow, pink, blue, and product red. And because this was in a metal, the yellow in particular was kind of almost similar to the iPod Nano yellow. It's almost a gold sort of a color. Not sure how well
Mm.
that's showing up there.
Yeah.
Fun fact, I remember in reading about Steve when they were looking at the initial iMac G3s and lining them all up, and they had all these colors, and yellow was there, and he was like, within 10 minutes, he'd approved the whole lot. And I remember reading that someone else, I'm not sure who it was like, oh, wow, decisions get made quick around here. And the decision was get rid of the yellow. Looks like piss. Get rid of it. The rest look great. So it only took how many years to bring that gold color back? So yeah, that was in the fifth gen, six and seven. They even got rid of the other colors there and called it gold. So yeah, what can you tell me about that, JD? What did you research on gold color tell you?
Yeah, not much other than they replaced yellow with gold, but as you just pointed out,
Mm,
it was probably very close to the same color.
yeah, very much so. And I guess my only other comment on the iPod Touch is that in my field, education, iPod Touches are pretty big because they were a more affordable. They were basically an affordable camera for a lot of schools who were able to use them um, before the iPad came out and took over. Um, I know, yeah, when I was in IT at schools and teaching as well, there was often a class iPod, and that would capture your memories of that class, and it'd have all
Mm.
the apps that would allow you to share it with the parents and whatnot. So, as far as education goes, that's got a special place in my heart too.
Fantastic. So by my count back, there's, well, probably more than now, but I originally thought that there was about 76 different variations of iPod. There's probably actually 78 now with those product red variations we spoke to a moment ago. And that's not counting the storage capacities. If you really wanted to go whole hog and have one of everything, you can probably multiply that by 4 or 5, I suspect. So not a small collecting area, which you can see why I've decided to really focus mine quite small. And according to the wiki page that I was researching, they estimate that there were 450 million iPods sold in their duration. So I'm sure we've missed some. So have we missed any?
I'm sure we have.
What's your favourite iPod series or your favourite iPod model? Let us know down in the comments. And of course, if you'd like to let us know any future topics that you'd like us to talk about, let us know down in the comments about those. We'd love to hear from you. All right, on to recent news. So a few things that popped up in my various feeds in the past week that I thought were worth mentioning. First one is Mac27's Complete Set, which is an online resource that's brand new and being built and obviously crowdsourced, so up to us to help populate it. But what the aim of this is to actually identify all the things that came with, were accessories to each of the Apple products, the G3 to G5 era in particular, as it says on the screen there. So they're wanting to know what came in the boxes, which software worked with each of the systems, and so forth. A bit like Matt's tribute to OS X and what was current at the time. Mac27.net is trying to do the same thing for all the G3 to G5 era, which sounds like a great project. So check out the link in the description and help out if you can. Next one, I haven't played with this yet, but I'm going to have to because I have been desperately trying to put various web pages on my classic Macs. And so Acrofox, which is a web browser for the PowerPC that's relatively current, so therefore has up-to-date securities and so forth, much more current than predecessors. So they're up to version 3 that just got announced last week, so check that out. Again, links in the description. Have you got any PowerPCs that you'd need to use this on, Josh?
Not on a daily basis, JD, although I'm really hoping to get some set up for the students at my school to be able to play with. And I'm sure IT are not going to let me on the network without something like this, so
Yeah.
we'll have to.
So I'm really keen to use it
installed.
on. I'm really keen to use it on the 20th anniversary Macintosh because I love sort of putting up the web pages for whatever show I'm on, or the Mac Museum when I'm there and so forth. But it's really hard to do because I'm still running Mac OS 8.6 on it. So something like this will be very helpful. The next one is actually a Tinker Different thread, which I'll put the link for Tinker Different members. But for those with an Apple III, this might be really helpful. So the user concerned is trying to find a contemporary replacement for Apple III RAM. And as you can see there, he's got a new module that he's installed. He's got it to work to some degree. It isn't a finished product yet. But if you're an Apple III user, and RAM is really hard to come by if it fails, and particularly Apple III RAM because it's a composite double module, as I understand, then this project might be something you're interested in. So if you're Apple III enthusiast, check out the link in the description. Apple III's in your collection? I suspect not. If you're a coloured person, beige would be boring.
Beige.
Yeah, beige would be boring.
I'd love to get that poster. Sorry, no beige.
Next up, now the video the screen doesn't probably help you too much, but another thread on Tinker Different. But MMU Man on Tinker Different has put together a how-to on how to break into, in this case, your Mac portable battery, which is fused plastic, to replace the battery and then seal it back up again. So he's got a whole lot of descriptions. I've just focused on the fact that there's some videos and it sort of describes what he's doing there. But he's got a how-to on how to do all of these things and a bit of a description of what works or what doesn't work. So if you're having to break into some sealed plastic things, whether it's batteries or power supplies or whatever that's Apple related, then have a look at this thread. It might be really helpful. Okay, moving on to coming events. So Retro Gaming Bendigo has their next meeting coming up in December. I think their last one was just last weekend. So their next one is the 6th of December, the first Sunday of the month, at St Killian's Hall in Bendigo. So bring along your retro game, so your Apple Pippin if you've got one, or an early Mac or Apple II, and get into the retro gaming. Are you into retro gaming at all, Josh?
Oh, if I had more spare time, I would definitely be into retro gaming. I think, yeah, one of the remarkable things about Matt's museum, is being able to actually use some of the games that were period relevant on those machines. Because, there's all these emulators out there and there's a web browser version of this and that, but there's something really cool about using the real hardware that those games are actually built for. So
Hmm.
it's definitely something I'd like to get into more.
And I'm sure your school kids would enjoy it too.
Mm.
Technology markets. So sorry about the Facebook post there, but it was the best information I could get. So the next one is on the 23rd of November in Victoria at the Darebin Community Sports Stadium. Now this one is going to also be a vintage computer collection show. So I'll have to find out the details, but I'll plan to be there and bring some of my collection along. There's other dates advertised as well. Sunday the 14th of December at Keysborough and Sunday the 21st of December at Reservoir for technology markets. But the Vintage Computer Show, the 23rd of November in Reservoir.
It's a shame all these are in Victoria. I wish there was some more sort of things up in New South Wales. So if anyone knows
Well,
of any that I haven't looked into, the
funny
next
you should
one, I
say
believe.
that. So funny you should say that. So WasFest 42 is in New South Wales. It's an Apple II thing, so beige, sorry. But 22nd of November in New South Wales, again, it's held in a private house. So ring the organisers or contact the organisers and get the details. But this one is in New South Wales, so maybe something for you, Josh.
One day.
Now, the next one's actually an international event, but I thought it was worth talking about because it is an international event that you can attend from Australia, and that's the Newton Global Users Meetup number 17. So it's going to be on Saturday, the 15th of November at 1700 Universal Time. So you need to check that in your Apple clock to see what time that is in Australia. I haven't done that myself just yet. I'll put links in the description, but if you're an Apple Newton user, then I'll be there or be square, I think. Now, Matt's not with us today, so we'll do our best to spruik the Mac Museum, but the Mac Museum's got its next open day on Saturday, the 15th of November. From 10 a.m. till 4 p.m. No excuse to not get to this one if you're in Victoria because it isn't at the same time as the retro gaming in Bendigo. Normally it conflicts. So I think we've got a day of our own for the Mac Museum Open Day. So if you're in or near Melbourne, come and check it out. I think it might be close to the last time you'll get to see the OS X tribute that Matt's put together. And that whole series of PowerPC towers are brilliant. We've talked about it lots on the show, but it's a fantastic exhibition and well worth the trip down to have a look alongside everything else in the museum.
Definitely. It is a place to behold, JD, and I'm super jealous that it's so far between here and there because I tell you what, if it was closer, I'd be there much more frequently. Kudos to Matt and what he's doing there. It's absolutely incredible. Living our dreams one day at a
Uh,
time.
Absolutely, and I'm planning to be there, so if you come down, say hello. The next one we've got on the list is the Adelaide Retro Computing Group. We talk about these guys fairly regularly. So Friday the 14th of November in the Unley Community Centre in South Australia. Again, link down in the description. And they've also got their own retro swap meet, which is also in November on the 29th at the same location. So all the details down in the description. Check them out and contact the organisers for further information. Are you likely to travel across to Adelaide? We've talked about it a few times. Not sure whether we'll get there this time, but
Probably not just for this, I wouldn't say. I think it's about 18 hours last I checked from here, so pretty long way. But
Yeah,
definitely
overnight from
sounds
Melbourne.
great.
I've done it once before, so yeah, you never know.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
Okay, so time for our for sale section, and I'm glad Josh is still with us because this week I focused on iPods. No great surprise, I guess. And
We'll
gee,
have to be
then
careful with what we share.
well, we do. There are so many. I had to actually cut the list down, and as usual, a few of the things got sold between my researching yesterday and the show recording today. And so,
Mm,
get onto these pretty quickly. They're actually really good prices for some of these items, and I've tried to get different parts of the iPod collection. So well under $100. I think one of them is $100, but you'll see why it's worth talking about. And
mm.
this is only a fraction of what's available. And even this morning in Melbourne, there were a couple of fantastic iPod posts, $20 and $30 for really nice items. So I haven't included them. I didn't have time. But there's plenty around. So for the Apple collectors, the iPod is absolutely a great place to start,
Yeah,
particularly
oh,
if you're on a budget.
100%. And just like we've mentioned today, there's just so many variations, and there was 450 million sold. Like there's a lot of them around. And I would be disappointed to learn how many are just turfed. But it's great that we've got these things like Marketplace where it's relatively easy to list things like this. Because yeah, you're right. There are some good deals to be had if you've got the time to find them.
There is. And so these are all off Marketplace. First up, we've got this iPod 4th Gen Nano, 8 gigs, $50 from Melbourne. We've spoken about this one, this model, a few times today, and you can see the colour screens working there. So pretty much everything I'm listing here today is in working condition. So there, if you're after a Nano, there's one for $50.
Can I just jump in real quick? Sometimes people mention that they haven't powered them on for a while, or that they don't know the condition. There's a couple that I've had that have had those descriptions, and when I've gone to power them on, very, very shortly after, we get a very spicy pillow battery expanding.
Mm,
In fact, I've got that exact, well, it's actually the fifth gen, but that exact color, and you can see the battery. You probably can't see it real clearly on this lovely camera, but yeah, there's a clear gap between the screen and the rest of the body just because that battery is expanding. And to my knowledge, with my limited repair skill, they're quite difficult to replace. So that's just something to be aware of, particularly if, these things are so light, you can get them shipped potentially. But you just ask for more than just one quick photo of them if you're keen to actually use the product.
All right, next up we have, one of yours and my favourites, the 2nd Gen iPod Shuffle, 1 gigabyte. This one's from rural Victoria. Again, $60 is reasonably pricey, but it's in pretty good condition. Comes with the box instructions, the dock. It's pretty complete, so on that
Mm.
basis, not a bad deal. So it says
Yeah, I
tested
really
and
like
working.
the Yeah, awesome. I really like the box marketing on these. I know it's terrible for the environment, all that clear plastic, but it really showcased the product, didn't it? It was sort of literally up on this, almost like a jewel in a jeweler's case type design with that box. And I was just going to also comment on the fact that there's lots and lots of third-party rip-offs of this model in particular. And
Hmm.
so if it's just the photo of the device, it can be quite difficult to tell. Obviously, this is presumed genuine given all the accessories, but yeah, that's just a gotcha to watch out for.
Well, speaking of which, next one up, we've got the 4th Gen iPod with charging cord for $20. This one's from New South Wales. And, well, let's have a look at the back. So it's got the Apple logo on the back. So it is likely to be genuine. It's got the genuine Apple logo or icon on the charging cable as well. So
Mm.
$20, one of those beautiful coloured iPod Shuffle version 4s. So next up, we've got an iPod Touch. Looks to be the 3rd edition, from what I can tell. $30 from New South Wales. And again, they've got the screen running in the photo, so it clearly works, which is good
Mm.
news. Next up, I had to include it, even though I think it might be a little bit pricey, but one of my favourites, the iPod Shuffle 1st Gen. So this is the chewing gum chewing gum packet iPod.
Mm.
$50 from New South Wales. Says working condition. Be pretty hard not to work as a USB stick at least.
That's right. It's a shame it doesn't come in the box because that was a really special box, that lime green. It was pretty cool.
All right, next one is an iPod Classic, the 4th generation. Now, clearly, it's the 4th generation with colour. So it's actually the iPod Photo for $80 from New South Wales. Looks to be in pretty good nick too.
Seems like a pretty good deal.
Next up, the iPod Touch 6th generation in blue. So you get some colour choices here. There's the back of it. Bit hard to see with the lighting there, but clearly in working condition. Again, another $50 one from Queensland this time. And last up, I had to throw this in at $100, an iPod Mini 1st generation, so not a 2nd. Sorry about that. But still, working condition. The screen's lighting up there, which is great. And comes with the charging cable. So $100 from South Australia. These are actually getting pretty rare. So actually, it says 1st generation, but I'm looking at the photo. I'm looking at the photo, and the icons on the scroll wheel are the same color as the case, and it's
100%.
got the memory configuration on the back. So it's in fact a 2nd generation. So there you go.
Correct. The color is very different. This is the very almost olive pastel 1st gen, and that one's much more aligned.
Well, that's the end. It's flown, even though I know we've probably gone for about an hour. The time has really flown. Josh, thank you so much for helping out today and your expertise in all things iPod.
Well, at least all things colour. I don't feel like I'm much of an iPod expert, but clearly got a problem given the drawful that I have here.
Absolutely.
Thank you very, very much for the invite, JD. It's been a real honour to be on the show. So, thank you.
No, absolutely my pleasure. But thanks again for stepping in at short notice with Matt being really busy this week, being a short week in Melbourne with Cup Day this week for us. Any final thoughts on iPod collecting?
Yeah, well, like you mentioned earlier, JD, I feel like this is a fantastic entry point, particularly for maybe some younger collectors to start their collection, because as we've seen, they're such a small device. It doesn't just mean that they're a bit cheaper, but it also could mean that shipping is a little more appropriate and easy to do. So if that's something that you're interested in as a potentially tighter budget, younger, less physical space. I know my wife is keen for me to collect iPods rather than iMac G3s. It can be a really, really cool hobby, especially for me to see all those colors lined up and to be able to collect every color of one particular one. It can be quite a challenge, but also I think can be quite rewarding when you slide open that drawer.
Oh, absolutely. If you haven't seen it, go back to our storage episode where we've featured some videos that Josh has put up, or just look at Josh's channel. We'll have the links down in the description for his storage solution for his iPods and keyboards and mice as well. They're just
the most expensive item in my collection is that storage shelf.
We appreciate any comments from our audience, so please, if you've got a favourite iPod or an iPod series, let us know. If there's something you'd like us to talk about in future episodes, please let us know down in the comments. I'll be back again next week. Hopefully Matt will be free. Otherwise, we might call on Josh or Simon or one of the other friends of the show to help us out. But like and subscribe so you don't miss out. And until we see you next time, take care.
Bye.
Thank you for joining the Macdownunder Podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you again soon.